This video is going to talk about the characteristics of the American economy and touch base on socialism and capitalism as well. So what are the characteristics of the American economy? Well, first of all, we have a limited role of government. Capitalism is involved here. Laissez-faire, which is a French term meaning let people do as they choose, or it's a hands-off approach. So again, we have the very limited role of government. We don't want the government involved into our economy that much. We want to make sure that it is very much limited in that regard. Adam Smith, he authored The Wealth of Nations in 1776. Picture of him over there on the right. He believed in this hands-off approach. He also believed in what we call an invisible hand, and that is going to be the next thing we talk about here. So his invisible hand idea, again, he's the father of economics, authored The Wealth of Nations, and in The Wealth of Nations, he says that we rely on a system which people make exchanges to obtain what they want. So he basically says with this invisible hand, how can people who pursue their own self-interest through voluntary exchange also promote the best interests of society? Well, if we rely on a system in which people make exchanges to obtain what they want, we can do that. Okay? So basically, if I think I can make a better pizza than Pizza Hut or Papa John's, I'm going to go do so, and therefore that is going to help our economy as well by giving us more choices as well. Second characteristics of the American economy is free enterprise. Okay, so this is where individuals own the factors of production and they decide how to use them within legal limits. Third, private property. This is where capital and other resources owned by individuals or businesses rather than the government. And so private property is capital and other resources owned by individuals, not the government. Public property would be owned by the government. Okay, so this is a right protected by the United States Constitution, that we have the right to private property. It also gives owners a large incentive to use their resources as efficiently as possible. Again, you look at maybe parents and kids. If a parent buys you something, you maybe don't care as much about it. You might treat it differently compared to what your own money bought this item. You might take a little bit more responsibility if you used your own money on this. Okay, so same thing here with private property. We're going to take care of our property and we're going to use the resource as efficiently as possible so that we can get the most money out of our business. Another characteristic of the American economy is what we call freedom of choice. Again, we have the choice of being able to choose what we want to buy, what we want to do. Profit incentive. Again, the American dream is to have as much profit as possible. Again, profit is defined as the amount left after all the costs of productions have been paid. So again, that is our incentive to do well in our business, in our profession, to make sure that we make the most money as possibly what we want. And competition is another characteristic. Competition is defined as a rivalry among producers of similar products to win more consumers. Now, competition comes in different couple ways. There's market competition, which is competition through market exchange. And there's competition in markets for resources. That could be natural resources, who has the most oil. Okay? It can also be human resources. That means we're competing for you as a college graduate. John Deere or Caterpillar, if you're an engineer or something, they're going to offer you more money, or they're going to compete for that human resource. And there's also competition in the market for products. Again, if you notice that when you go down, find a restaurant, maybe McDonald's, close by, you're usually going to find a Hardee's or a Burger King, maybe both. They want that competition in the market for these products because it's going to drive them to do better. And it's going to be great for us as a consumer that we have choices. We can look at McDonald's and they got 2-for-1 burgers. Well, maybe Burger King that day has 2-for-1 double cheeseburgers. So there's going to be that competition through those products as well. Specialization, I want to define this for you. It's a process in which businesses and people focus on producing one or a few parts of an entire product. This was bid with Henry Ford when he started the assembly line. Before it would take a long time to build a car, and therefore the cars were really expensive and not everybody could afford one. And Henry Ford had this great idea that he wanted to make sure everybody had a car, so he had to make it cheaper. So he found out that the assembly line was the way to go, where one person would be doing one thing or a few things and not building the entire car. He found out that he could build a car much faster, and therefore he could lower the price on it, and he could build more of them and be able to recoup his costs for the most part that way as well. The goals of the U.S. economic system, to be efficient, where we use our limited resources wisely. Economic equity, we want the system to be just and fair. This might deal with equal pay for equal work, fairness in hiring practices, help for disabled workers. That would all be in economic equity. Economic growth, increase the amount of goods and services over the long term. Obviously, we want our economy to keep growing. Stability, to reduce the extreme ups and downs in the standard of living. Economic freedom allows members of society to make choices. Economic security, protection against risks beyond our control. Accidents on the job, the example here, natural disasters, business and bank failures, poverty and old age. These are all economic security stance where you might see that. This is a great video I'm going to put on there about wealth inequality in America. It'll be on there, and I think that it really opens your eyes to how much of a difference there is between not the poor and the super rich, but between the rich and the super rich, or even the middle class and the super rich. It's quite an eye-opening video. It kind of leads me into socialism and capitalism here. Socialism, this is an economic system in which the government owns the major factors of production and attempts to manage output and the distribution of goods. North Korea and Cuba would be examples of socialism. Marxian view of socialism. This is Karl Marx. Picture there on the right there. A continual struggle between various classes. He saw this, and he thought that socialism would be a great idea for society. He saw the huge disparity in the Industrial Revolution of the rich capitalists, otherwise known as the bourgeoisie, the factory owners, versus the proletariat, the poor workers and the working class. And his idea here was that if the proletariats would overthrow the bourgeoisie, and then we could have this where everybody is equal. He thought it was too much of the bourgeoisie were way too rich, and there's more poor workers than one factory owner or two factory owners, and they could overthrow them, and had this idea that wealth would be shared, and you didn't need to have, if everybody did what was best for everybody else, we could all be equal, and society would be great. And I guess in terms of the idealism, the ideology in this, it might be okay, but found out that socialism does not work. The human race does not work in that way. We have to have that incentive to want more, and I think that's why maybe it's failed many different times.